with the situation of the corona and the COVID infections in our college and elsewhere. So for some time, I'll continue to take her classes, means take classes on her behalf. And because her class and one of my class, they were having the same time, and since morning I have continuous timetable, and between them, means if I have a time from 10 to 11, but because both of your departments were occupied with the classes at that time, so I think I had only one option, to like go for combining this class. Okay, so I'll try my best that you stay, you both the departments can stay connected in a way. Don't hesitate to share your opinion. Please feel free to speak. Okay, we all are, although of course we are from the, means these students are here are from two different departments, but at the end we all are girls of this college, so we shouldn't hesitate while we want to put question in a way. When we put question, our thoughts should be more towards this thinking that okay, this question is something which will answer my query. You shouldn't think that what other will think of that question. Is that question foolish? Is that question nonsensical? No, question is a question. It can neither be a sensical, it can be, it shouldn't be said or classified as a sensical or nonsensical. Okay, so if you feel that you have any question, irrespective of what other will think or not, please feel free to ask. If you have any opinion or you feel anything, please go ahead. Okay, don't restrain yourself or hesitate yourself, or hesitate to put or ask question or to express yourself. Okay. So what I thought is that because both the departments are, means I'm taking, we are at different levels for taking the classes. So I decided to take separate unit that I will be taking only on the Wednesday when both the departments will be combined. Okay. Rest other classes, and in the other classes we will continue with the courses that I was taking earlier. Okay. So I thought, why not to begin with an interesting unit, which I really means that is quite an interesting unit, and most of the time because that unit is covered mostly in the last part, so I have to rush with that unit. So I thought, why not to take that as a common unit so that you also will enjoy, and I of course always enjoy telling about it. Okay, and this is unit 6. Okay, so this problems when we use this term called climate change, global warming, acidification, acid rain, and then we keep on listening to these things that okay, Earth Summit had happened, now COP is happening, the Convention of Parties is happening, and then we come across to okay, these protocols have been written. Montreal Protocol is there, Kyoto Protocol is there, Stockholm Convention has been happening. There is a body called IPCC. There is a body called FCCC. Then there is a protocol on a climate change. Then there is a protocol on ozone thing. What is all this? Okay, sometimes they become so confusing that we all get confused. Okay, where has it begun? Had they begun at random, or there was a proper reason for each and every event? And actually, one event is connected with the another event. Okay, they all are interconnected, and one event, once an event started happening, the another event subsequently they started happening. Okay, so how then India, as a responsible nation, took the responsibility for protecting the environment, the climate, biodiversity, and how it brought these different acts of Biodiversity Act, the Wildlife Protection Act, the Forest Conservation Act, etc. When it got influenced, not influenced, when it was motivated, when it promised in those global meetings that as a responsible nation of this globe, it too will take these steps in curtailing and in curtailing the problems because of the global warming, climate change, and will take care of the forest, will promote afforestation, and will also keep in mind the fossil fuel emission and so on. Okay, so we will. This is a very interesting unit. We all be learning, and we will have a global view on what has actually happened, what is happening right now across the globe. Okay, so it's 12:12. I think for 40 minutes I'll be taking the class, and then in the last few minutes I'll be discussing about the means I'll be showing you a small video to this something on global changes. Okay, so I'll share this slide. Is anyone has any doubt, any confusion?
No, ma'am.
Fine. Thank you, Deepika. Okay, so I'll share my screen. Where is it? Okay, this is it. Okay, are my slides visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, fine. Wait, there is a knock on the door. Sorry, Ayushi, I think you had sent your request at the very first time, for the first time, but actually you had sent the request probably on another link, and there was already class going on that link. I'm really sorry. Yeah. So let's discuss about this, which is Unit 6 on the recent climate change, or what we have done to the climate, that which we are calling it as a climate change. Now, before we go and to understand what is climate change, we first need to understand what is difference between a climate and a weather. हम बोलते हैं ना, we have often heard this these terms called weather report is there. Okay, then we say, okay, there is an overall climate change. Are these two terms same, climate and the weather, or they are different? Please, the court is open for your opinions.
मैम दे आर टू डिफरेंट टर्म्स बिकॉज मैम क्लाइमेट जो होता है वो एक पर्टिकुलर एरिया के लिए मतलब लॉन्ग पीरियड ऑफ टाइम में वहाँ की कैसी ह्यूमिडिटी है, कहाँ मतलब वहाँ का जो सनलाइट है वो कितना प्रोपोर्शन है, मतलब कंसंट्रेशन कितना है, वो किस लेवल का है, रेनफॉल कैसा है, उसके बेसिस पे वो डिफाइन होता है. बट मैम वेदर एवरी डे मतलब चेंज होते रहता है, लाइक कभी कोल्ड है कभी हॉट है, लाइक मैम इस तरह से. तो दे आर टू डिफरेंट टर्म्स.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else wants to tell? It's good. Okay, so yeah, I think you've said very well. Okay, now when I say it's climate, okay, so weather is something which is changing every second, every minute, because the wait. This call is now being recorded. Okay, it's like happening every time because Earth is, or our globe is, in a constant dynamic changes. It doesn't has, or it never has a constant climate. Oh, sorry, a constant temperature, or it has a constant means the air, the constant pressure, constant humidity. It is changing every second. Okay, this measurement or this change in every second thing. Now, of course, we cannot report things every second, but based on the every second data, we are able to compile a data for a day. Now, that is known as your weather. So that is local. Not just as a variable with the city, but even within the city, there are likely chances that my region has a cloud and a region some 15 kilometers ahead, that colony doesn't has a cloud, or maybe the cloud are still going there. Okay, or my area has a storm, but in the other area the storm has not yet happened. Or for an area or for a country for per day. Why per day? Because every second and every minute nobody has a time to go through those changes. Okay, so as a whole they will go through a change for a for a per on a per day basis. That is what climate change is. Is an overall measurement for a or an aggregation of the measurement or a weather at a particular place for a very very long period of time. For example, now based on these weather, we know that our country broadly can be divided into 6 seasons. Okay, where we further broadly divided into 4 broad seasons, like these are summer, winters, monsoons, and of course um, the springtime. Okay, and then we of course sometimes divide it into autumn, somewhere a transition between the summers and the winters, then springtime, which is a transition between your winters and the summers. And in India, monsoon comes in the summertime, so sometimes we take it into the summer. So this broad broad knowledge, or this broad criteria with which we are able to identify, okay, in general, this country has this of or this part of the climate, this is the season that is going to happen. That is actually a climate. Okay, so climate is a measurement or is an aggregation of long term weather information for a particular region, especially for a very long area, like for example for a country, or maybe for an entire continent, or maybe for a globe. That is said to be as your climate. Is it clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Is it clear, Veda?
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect. Anyone has any doubt between climate and weather? Perfect. Okay. So it implies that if we understand the overall change in the climate, we can then very well imagine, okay, this will now start, or this can be connected with the changes in the weather at local levels, or the weather which is changeable, which is dynamic for each and every second and minute. There we can also find it. Okay. Now, now my one important question is, what is that thing which means, is there any force, or is there any energy, or is there any divine force or divine power which is making these climatic changes or weathers to change? What is that thing that is happening with the earth with which there is this changes in this climate, or there is a change in these patterns of wind, etc.? What is that thing? Is there any force, or means why this change in the climate or the change in the weather take place? What is that thing which is changing it?
Pollution.
Pardon, Vida?
Due to change in temperature, like basically which can also be increased by the consumption of sunlight by the carbon dioxide due to basically pollution that we are
Okay.
creating.
Okay, good, Pallavi. We can say that, okay, changes in temperature. Okay, let's now forget about any air pollutant. I'm talking in general about climate. Means just imagine that Earth is a healthy planet, and we are talking about climate and the weather in general, where we know that, okay, in this season monsoon is going to come, in this season winters will happen, in this season summers are going to come, in this season dew will come, and so and so. Okay, so of course temperature changes is one important factor, and what is that important thing which is changing this temperature? Is the change in the inclination of the earth towards its axis, or on its axis. Okay, so like for example, why winters come in India? Okay, because at that time the northern hemisphere axis tilts away from the sun, so the radiations become far from reaching, so the winters come. And why do the summer comes? Because at that time the northern hemisphere of the globe, it tilts towards the Okay, Pallavi, it's fine. Okay, it tilts towards the sunlight with which we face summers. Okay, so the tilting of the Earth towards, I mean, with its axis is one of the important criteria for the change in weather. Okay, second is the rotation and the revolution of the Earth. Okay, now when we just imagine you are sitting on a scooty and it's running, even when there is no air, we feel air. Okay, air in sense, even when there is no wind, we feel wind. Why? Because when we are moving with the speed, we resist the air particles with which we feel that air. Okay. Similarly, due to the revolution on the rotation it's the movement or the circling of the Earth about its own axis, and revolution is going around the sun. So revolution is going around the sun, and rotation is it's like dancing. You start dancing where you are standing. Means wherever you are standing, you start dancing round and round. That is your rotation. Okay. So because of this rotation and revolution, which is of course the movement of the Earth, the winds or the they get they offer the friction. The atmosphere offers the friction with the surface of the Earth, as a result of which the wind patterns are generated. Okay. So first, the revolution and rotation of the Earth, the tilting of the Earth across the axis. These two are important parameters with which the climate or the wind patterns they are formed. Then comes the temperature. Now, because of the temperature, the precipitation is happening, the cloud formation is happening, with which the rainfall is occurring. Okay. Now, because of this temperature variation in the water, in the oceans, the currents are formed, which are said to be ocean currents. Overall, these atmospheric wind patterns and the ocean currents, they together form and determine the climate of the globe. Clear? Is it clear?
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Anyone has any doubt? Now you have a picture that how this climate or the formation of the climate or the weather or these patterns or the wind patterns take place on the Earth. Okay, so both ocean currents as well, because when we say climate change, the only thing that comes in our head is okay, the air currents, the atmosphere high above in the sky. No, the ocean currents are also very, very, very important, because when we listen, have you heard about this term called El Nino effect, La Nina effect? These
Yes,
terms,
ma'am.
exactly, these terms are often referred when we face monsoons and then newspaper report, okay, it's the La Nina effect is happening, okay, it's the El Nino effect, okay, it's the western disturbances has happened. Okay, right now this cyclone, what is it? This has a typical name. Okay, that is
Taute.
yeah, Taute, right. Thank you. Okay, right, Taute. So this has severely started affecting the coastal areas of the Maharashtra, Gujarat, Ahmedabad, and because of that, we are even Delhi and UP. They are also facing this rainfall. Okay, so this is because of the ocean currents mixed with the atmospheric currents. Okay. So this El Nino, La Nina, they are mostly the ocean currents that bring about the changes in the atmospheric currents also. So see how it's amazing that the ocean currents can actually influence the atmospheric currents and vice versa, because they both are connected with one very important event, that is the formation of the cloud that will only bring the rainfall. And rainfall is one of the very important parameter in governing and in controlling the vegetation of any region and in affecting the climate condition of region. And we all know that water, we cannot live without water. So this transport tank of the water across the globe, these are actually the clouds. For these clouds to form, and to carry these clouds, because there is no force to carry on the clouds. Okay, आज इधर में चलो, या clouds को हम उधर बोलते हैं चलो चलो आज उधर चलो, we cannot do it. So this is all done by the nature itself. And how this is happening? This is happening in the change of the pressures, change of the humidity, change of all these physical factors, which actually controls this pattern. Okay. So now we come to the understanding that what is the significance of the climate. Okay. Now, because climate measures the temperature, for a very, very long period of time, as I had already told. It can be an averaging for about a 10 years of time, for 50 years of time, for 25 years of time, and so on. Okay. Now, as I had already told you, that what are the reasons for the climate change? Of course, the changes in the sun's intensity. And how can that sun's intensity changes? By the tilting of the earth around the sun, by the rotation and revolution of the sun, and then over the earth also. Volcanic eruption is a very, very important phenomenon because it releases huge amount of gases that plays an important and vital role in the formation of the clouds. Okay. Now we'll come to know why it means, well, what is the role of the volcanic eruptions. Actually, for the cloud formation, water vapor is not just enough. You also need to have some amount of particles in form of particulate matter for the formation of the clouds. Those are known as your cloud forming particles. Without those particles, cloud or water vapors won't condense. Okay, so that is also important. Okay, so I hope you may have heard about this technique known as artificial rainfall. Has anyone heard of it, or artificial cloud
Yes,
formation?
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So what they do is there, they go high above in the cloud, in the regions where there is huge humidity, and they will deliberately put some particulate mass, as a result of which condensation process, it goes at a very rapid rate with which the formation of the cloud take place, and then they start raining. Okay. So now when we say about change, now we have understood what is climate. Now when we say about change, it implies that something which was happening at quite a normal rate, there is some shift in it. Okay. Now the climate change, there might be a question. Now if it is something about that, okay, there was some usual climate that was there for about 10 years of thing, it is changing, there is change in some of the patterns there. Okay. Then why is that so a concern? We also go for changes. Change is not a it's not a bad idea, and it's not the first time that the climate is changing. I'll tell you about the history, how the climate has been changed in past decades as well, in past years as well. Okay. So why has now this thing of climate change become the concern, or became a concern, or became a topic of question, okay, or a topic of discussion, or a topic of worry? Because this time the change that is happening, first, that is because of the human contribution, and second, that is if it continues to happen, if those changes continue to happen, then that is going to kill and finish the entire human civilization. Okay, that is why this change now that is happening in the climate has become a matter of discussion or of worry. Okay. Now, interestingly, even in now, when this climate change thing was happening, there were huge debates. Okay, because people were not ready to accept. Some groups were not at all ready to accept that this change is happening due to the human factors. Okay, and there were two groups. There was a group of researchers, politicians, industrialists who were supporting this phenomenon, who were saying, okay, no, human beings are not at all responsible for causing climate change. And there was one group which was saying, no, we are the reason for the changes. Now, when this debate was happening, the reason was that because climate change had happened earlier as well, and those were as the result of the natural changes and the cycle in the earth. Okay. For example, Ice Age. Have you heard about this Ice Age? You must have saw this movie called Ice Age as well. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Right.
Yes, ma'am.
Right. So last Ice Age was before the human had started evolving. Okay, and each ice age, they don't run for 1 year, 2 year, or 3 year. They run for centuries. Okay, so I think last ice age for about some 200 or 300 years of time, or even more than that. Okay? So it's said, means so far since the Earth has first formed, 10 such ice ages had happened. Okay, so they had means through computer simulations, through physical studies, and through physics and mathematical calculations, they all came. They have propounded and came up with several theories that says, okay, these climate events were happening in the earth since long time. Okay? And there is a time now that again that cyclic process of the change in the pattern of the climate of the earth is coming. So it's not human driven, it's because of the nature it is happening, because it has happened earlier as well. So this change in the temperature, then will be followed. Some say this will be followed by sudden cooling and sudden freezing. Some says no, it will actually be very hot, and so on. So there are several theories that came up. This debate happened for a very long period of time, unless and until through data study it was proved no, this time the change is happening is actually the human driven. Okay, so now what was the reason? Or there must have been some data with which they were able to conclude, or those group of researchers were able to conclude that okay, this time it's human driven. Why not this time? This change is the nature. Means what was that doubt that that had happened in their mind, with which they actually thought, no, actually this change which is happening in the climate this time is somewhat different from the changes that had happened in the climate earlier. And that was first, this change was very rapid. Changes otherwise in the previous studies had been found that climate means these changes which had happened naturally in the climate were very slow. But this time the changes that are happening, they are very rapid. And I hope we all can imagine, just ask your parents about their childhood and then their adulthood and then our stage. I think there is huge changes which I can see from my eyes. Those changes which were initially happened in 100 years of time, then started happening in 50 years of time, then had started happening in 25 years of time, and now they are changing. Then they started happening in 10 years of time. Now I think every year we can change, we can see that those changes are happening. Changes which initially used to happen in 100 years of time, now they are happening in less than 10 years of time. It drew, then it created that doubt in the head of the researchers. Okay, there is something that is not going right. Okay, so this change is probably the climate change. And this change is something which is there is somewhere wrong. Probably there is some other thing or other factor, not the nature, that is responsible for causing this change. And then based on the data studies, when they compared those changes, they found okay, we are the ones who have caused those changes. And because those changes had started creating certain changes in certain phenomenons, with which it will put the life of all the living species in danger, this has become a topic of discussion. Is it clear? Is it clear, Vida?
Yes, ma'am.
Fine. So now another question comes: how is climate change going to affect us? Okay. Now they affect because human is exposed to these 5 changes. Okay, this is the weather changes, which is due to the changes in the heat waves or extreme weather. For example, in the regions where it was cold, even more, the temperatures have started going even more has becoming more colder. For example, if on an average Siberia had minus 10 degrees Celsius of temperature in winters, now they are going up to minus 20 degrees Celsius. Or the regions that used to experience maximum temperature of about 50, now they're experiencing somewhere around 55 degrees Celsius of temperature. So the extreme of temperatures have increased. There is a huge variation in the temperature and rainfall, precipitation. Okay. Now this is affecting 2 important things. Firstly, it is causing the contamination in the pathways. Now, when I say pathways, it is that cycle of nutrient, that cycle of gases, and the pathway of the food chain. So it is contaminating. It is affecting these things. Okay, and it is affecting the transmissions. Okay, now what are those transmissions? Now, as a result of this, they are causing change in 3 important systems. Now, for the sustenance of life, what 3 things we need? Water and food. First important thing, of course, air, of course, oxygen we need. We cannot live without oxygen. But food, but oxygen is something natural. We cannot produce it. Means of course now the requirement of oxygen is of course artificial as well. We are producing it in the industries to get the oxygen cylinders. Anyways, but food and water, it is very important. And for food, agricultural economy is the only system with which we are getting the food grains. Okay, whatever food we are eating, whatever there is on our plate, they are all from the agricultural economy. Now, climate is severely affecting this agricultural economy. Now, in the recent report, I was reading the newspaper, and I had written a very small article in the form of an opinion with those observation. It's there on my blog. Okay, so means they had reported something very disturbing. Okay, and of course, we all are under the effect and the pressure of the corona and COVID. But at the same time, the report showed that the groundwater table or the groundwater amount in India is declining at a very rapid rate. And as a result of this, if it continues to happen, it is going to decrease the agricultural productivity by 68% in by 2025. Now 68% decline, which implies 68, not 68%, sorry, 38%. Sorry. I'm sorry. 38% decline. Now 38% decline is a huge amount. 38% decline means almost more than 1/3. Now, when our population is constantly increasing, that decline implies, and it means at this time, it means when the population is increasing, what should have happened? Actually, the agricultural productivity should also have increased parallelly. But what is happening? It's instead of increasing, it's further declining. Okay, so the thing that should go parallelly and should increase is actually going in a reverse direction. So that will create another problem in coming times, that is food crisis. Okay. So they are now actually looking for the methods and technologies and techniques with which very less amount of water is required for the agricultural purposes. Otherwise, they don't have any mechanism to produce water. Then they even thought of, okay, what we can do is that the excess amount of water that is there in rivers, we can divert them by the use of canals. But canals also have certain restrictions. In certain regions, there is no water system, and for that, the construction requirement, huge amount of investment. And by the time water reaches there, it suffers so much of evaporation and other diversions that there is quite amount of loss before the water reaches to that point. Okay, so that is also now coming, that canal irrigation is not a good way of irrigating fields. Okay, there has to be some other solutions to be found, and other irrigating methods need to be found. And one of the good irrigating method is to conserve water, that is by the construction of the ponds or bodies, which earlier used to happen. Okay, we'll all see that we are not doing anything new. We are actually trying to bring those techniques back, which was there in our Dada Pardada's Jamana. Okay, so we all want us to be back with the traditional techniques. So what used to happen in the villages earlier, they used to have a pond, and every year they used to clean that pond. They used to check the water hyacinth, algal growth is not there. They used to use for drinking purpose. They keep it keep a check कि वहाँ पर कपड़े नहीं धुले जा रहे और साबुन नहीं बहाया जा रहा है. Otherwise, because that sabun is going to add phosphorus in the water body, that is going to that is going to cause the growth of algae. So they used to keep a check. And every year, in order to increase the depth of the water body, they used to dig it, they used to clean it. Okay, so in every village, means I remember, means even in the Bundelkhand part, when I went, when I was a child, when I used to go with my parents, I remember almost every village had a pond. Okay, and unfortunately, those ponds that hadn't dried in years, means even people have crossed their generation watching those ponds filled with water, they are all dry. This simply implies that the water table is going down at a rapid rate, and we are doing nothing to prevent those ponds and lakes or wells. Okay, so they were all sustainable in a way that they were all independent as far as the irrigation needs were concerned. At that time, there was no canals, but then also we thrived well, because they had ample supply of water through ponds. Okay, so that is changing. And second is the social and economical changes. Okay, we will see in the later slides how it is going to change socially and economically. I hope I had shared that video of human. Okay, this was a small trailer on human, where human beings were showing how the change in the climate has caused increase in the migration of the people from one country to another country. Do you remember that? Do you remember that video? I think I had showed that video on Earth Day probably. Okay, anyways, no problem. So this, how these changes are going to affect human beings. I'm not talking about other living beings. Let's talk about human beings. So of course, it is going to increase the temperature. Because of that, erratic rainfall is happening, with which those regions which need rainfall, for example, for the agricultural system, they are not receiving rainfall, with which the agricultural productivity has gone down. Now, several viral infections, which are several pathogens, not just viral, but pathogenic infections that were initially inactive or were restricted to certain forest or small pockets, they are also becoming active with the changes in the temperature. Because for them, this high temperature is favorable, or with this average rise in 2 degrees Celsius of temperature is favorable for them. Okay, so new diseases are coming, pathogens are coming, which are infecting both the human beings as well as the agricultural productivity of the food crops. Okay, so as a result of this, of course, the food shortage is going to take place, with which the nutrition and the infection, the shortage of the nutrition and the infection is increasing. Okay. So now, means once we have understood what is climate, what is the significance of climate change, why is it happening, let's understand a bit about what we generally call as GHGs. Everywhere in the newspaper, there's cut down on GHGs and so and so. Okay, so the GHGs is a short form of greenhouse gases. There are four major greenhouse gases. This is your carbon dioxide, methane, that is CH4, nitrous oxides. Remember, I am not saying nitrogen oxide. It is nitrous oxide, that is N2O. I am not saying NO2, it's N2O. Remember, okay? So then it's carbon dioxide, it's methane, it's nitrous oxide, and it's the chlorofluorocarbons. Okay, so not just chlorofluorocarbons, because when we say chlorofluorocarbons, we imagine, okay, it must be a one gas. No, actually, it's a huge group of compounds. Okay, also there is a measurement unit. Okay, I'll discuss it later what that measurement unit is known as. Okay, so with that measurement unit, we actually find that, okay, out of these gases, this one is the most harmful and the most potent gases as far as the greenhouse gases is concerned. Okay, but before understanding what is greenhouse gases, we first need to understand what is a greenhouse effect and how these gases are causing greenhouse problem. So I think we have 15 minutes left, and because we have two departments, so I have to take the attendance. I'll stop here. Anyone has any doubts so far? Anyone with any doubt?
No, ma'am.
Okay, good. Okay, so